Amid the chaos happening in the US and the LA riots, numerous Donald Trump fans have attempted to show their backing for his decision to deploy the National Guard and some military units. In this clip, we'll see a Republican congressman appear on UK television to defend Donald Trump, only to repeatedly crumble under pressure from Victoria Darrisher. Let's watch the entire video, and I'll share my thoughts at the conclusion.
Let's talk live to Republican Congressman Mark Alford, who is a vocal supporter of Donald Trump in the House. Congressman, thank you very much for speaking to our audience here in the UK and around the world. As I understand it, there are about 4 million people in Los Angeles City. There are about 500 to 800 protesters. You've got hundreds of Marines now being mobilized. How is that proportionate?
Well, it's proportionate to the level of chaos that the mayor, Karen Bass, and the governor, Gavin Newsom, have promulgated on the people there of Los Angeles and the state of California. It got out of control because of them. We are perfectly fine with peaceful protests, but this devolved rather rapidly. At first, the city refused to do anything about it. The police department stood down. That is why the National Guard was brought in to protect property, to protect lives. And now the President of the United States is bringing in several hundred Marines, not to make arrests, not to deal with law enforcement, but to shore up the National Guard so that they can do their job now in coordination with the city that has finally taken action to arrest the thugs, the insurrectionists.
And so can I just clarify, will the Marines be allowed to shoot at protesters?
I highly doubt that. That is not in their purview. That is not in their orders from the President of the United States. Only under the Insurrection Act of our Constitution can Marines or any other law enforcement, that would be a violation of the Posse Comitatus, they cannot act as law enforcement officers on U.S. soil. That is not in their purview.
Okay. We've just shown our audience here in the UK and around the world the live pictures from downtown Los Angeles, and there are hundreds of people there. They are protesting peacefully. The atmosphere seems relatively jovial. Why do you need Marines?
Well, I haven't seen the video to which you were referring of a jovial nature. Yesterday I was watching live for several hours. It was anything but that.
But I'm talking about
these
today.
Anarchists, these
700
people
Marines,
throwing things at police, throwing bricks, throwing concrete, throwing rocks, dropping heavy equipment onto cars, setting cars on fire. That is not jovial. That is insurrection.
Forgive me, Mr. Alford. I'm not suggesting that is jovial. I'm suggesting what we're showing, what you can probably hear in the background now, are protesters, and the atmosphere looks fine. Now, the mayor and the governor of California made it clear that the LAPD could cope. The LAPD, who aren't known to be shrinking violets, let's face it, said the protests were largely peaceful. It doesn't sound like they need the National Guard or the Marines.
Well, you can't wait around, Victoria. It could quickly turn on a dime, or a pound, I should say, that this protest would change in a heartbeat. We saw that happen in the past 2 days. These forces that are being mobilized now, National Guard, local police, in coordination with the U.S. Marine Corps, that is coming in to shore up, not take any other action other than to help shore up these forces and provide support. It is there to try to quell this.
Okay.
You know,
well, let me put
the
this to you, if I
Democrats
may.
would try to say that President Trump has inflamed the situation by federalizing the National Guard. The people who fanned the flames on this was the governor, Gavin Newsom, and the mayor, Bass, for not doing anything to stop the violence. We are all about peaceful protests in the United States of America, but they crossed the Rubicon.
The widespread protests following the death of George Floyd back in 2020, when President Trump was in power the first time around, were far, far worse. And Donald Trump did not send the National Guard in then. That is why people are asking now, does he want this battle? Is this just an excuse?
This is not about a battle. This is about the 77 million Americans who voted a mandate to restore law and order in the United States of America, to restore our economic system, to restore security to our border. These all come together now in the orders of the President of the United States, the Homeland Security Secretary, ICE, enforcement of our immigration system. We have got to make sure that we have a future in this country, and that is going to require securing our border, securing our economy, securing our streets, and returning law and order. It's very simple.
Sure, and I'm not
President
asking.
Trump does not want a civil war. He wants justice, and he wants peace in America.
I'm actually not asking about the ICE raids. I'm asking you really about the First Amendment of the US Constitution, which guarantees, as you know, the right to assembly, freedom of speech, and the press.
Right.
But is it just when President Trump agrees with it then?
Not at all. We all believe in the First Amendment. I am a former journalist here in the United States of America. I made my career off the First Amendment. President Trump believes in the First Amendment. His administration believes in the First Amendment. But these scallywags have crossed the line. They are insurrectionists. They are funded in parts by outside organizations who are dropping off loads of bricks and concrete blocks and rocks to not just peacefully protest and not have a jovial time, but to disrupt, to harm, and to try to get their way through violence. It will not be tolerated.
Okay, we saw insurrectionists on January the 6th, didn't we? When, of course, President Trump, again, did not call in the National Guard or the Marines. I want to ask you one more question. Has Gavin Newsom stepped over the line? Because, as you know, today, Donald Trump says he would have him arrested. Now, arresting political opponents is what happens in President Putin's Russia, isn't it?
One clarification, Victoria, on your previous statement about January 6th. It is proven now that President Trump did authorize some 24,000 National Guard members to come on January 6th to the Capitol, and Nancy Pelosi refused those National Guard troops. She admitted on tape as to doing that. As far as Governor Gavin Newsom goes, I don't think he will be arrested. He is taunting the President of the United States of America because he intends to run for president. This is what's called earned media in America. You get free airtime, you get to spout off, you get to create an adversary and hopefully win the Democrat nomination. That is all that is about, because he has lost face because how poorly he has run the state of California low these many years.
Mark Halford, thank you very much for talking to our audience. We appreciate your time this evening.
Thank you.
Guess what? Every time I hear Republicans speak, I find myself tempted to say, I love this, but let me set the record straight. I don't love it. I absolutely despise it. What gets me is just how agonizingly predictable they all are. The same worn-out talking points, the same manufactured outrage, the same recycled drivel about restoring law and order, securing the border, and fulfilling the American mandate. It's like they're all reading from the same script they received at breakfast. Congressman Alford addressed the camera with that smug arrogance that's dripping with insincerity. Victoria posed direct, fair questions, urgent questions for these times, questions concerning proportionality, constitutional rights, and hypocrisy. And how did he respond? He danced around them, deflected, and spewed the usual Republican fairy tales. Let's be clear. Nobody's denying that protests can sometimes escalate. Nobody's pretending there weren't instances of unrest in LA. But the footage that Victoria and many of us saw depicted peaceful demonstrators, people rallying in broad daylight, chanting, waving signs, not hurling bricks or torching cars. Yet the response was to call in the Marines? Marines in an American city? Let's not kid ourselves into thinking this is about safety or de-escalation. If that were the case, we wouldn't be militarizing civilian areas like this. We wouldn't be parading the armed forces as if it were some dystopian spectacle. No, this is all about optics. It's about a strongman president trying to project power before an election. It's merely theater. And here's the real hypocrisy. Remember George Floyd? Remember the vast nationwide protests in 2020 when Donald Trump was in office? Those protests were larger, lasted longer, and were often much tenser. Yet, he didn't send in the National Guard then. He didn't roll out the Marines. He didn't federalize anything until it served his political agenda. So what's changed? Could this be nothing more than a distraction tactic? Another desperate attempt to shift the narrative, especially now that he's clashing, once again, with Elon Musk? It's honestly laughable. One minute they're at each other's throats, the next they're tweeting sweet nothings and playing nice. But now we're expected to believe there's some grand strategy? No, this is a distraction. This is about sparking conflicts with Gavin Newsom to rally the base. It's about attracting headlines and turning every protest into an excuse to play dictator. Trump says Newsom should be arrested? Seriously? That's rich. Coming from the guy who threw a fit about being held accountable for his own actions. The same guy who wept that Joe Biden was weaponizing the DOJ whenever trouble came knocking, yet here he is calling for a governor's arrest? If that's not fascist behavior, then what is? If that's not an authoritarian move, then what qualifies? The double standards are astonishing, but sadly not shocking. This is the essence of Trumpism: broadcast the unheard truths, commit unconstitutional acts, then gaslight everyone when they react. And let's not overlook the First Amendment. The Constitution explicitly defends the rights to peaceful protest, assembly, and free speech, whether Trump and his supporters like the message or not. Yet under his administration, those rights seem conditional upon loyalty, silence, and obedience. So, no, I'm not falling for the peace through strength charade. I'm not buying that this is about anyone's protection. It's about intimidating opposition. It's about criminalizing dissent. It's about paving the way for a political cleansing under the guise of restoring order. And we need to deeply consider that. Because if this is what we're witnessing now, imagine how a second Trump term might look, when he has no re-election worries, when he's truly unbridled. This isn't about another typical Republican administration. It's about the gradual demise of American democracy right before our eyes, while we're made to believe it's just business as usual. Share your thoughts in the comments. I genuinely want to know what you think. But while you're there, remember to subscribe, hit the notification bell, and smash that like button. Let's ensure this video reaches those who need to hear this, because the louder we are, the tougher it is for them to silence us. And as always, I'll catch you in the next one. Stay loud, stay vigilant, and stay informed.